Robertson. I'm from Ward 6, and I'll be acting as chair tonight. And I would like to start to my right and ask all the members to identify themselves and the ward they represent.
Alderman Karen Dixon, Ward 4.
Terry Goodwin, Alderman, Ward 4.
Lee Peterson, Ward 2.
And Mark Skidmore, Alderman, Ward 1.
Thank you. We have 100% attendance and on time. So the first action item for us is an acceptance of an agenda. I hope you have it. Do I have an emotion or a motion to amend? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Motion to approve by Alderman Goodwin, seconded by Alderman Peterson. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor of accepting the agenda say aye.
Aye.
And it's unanimous. Next, we have some minutes that we need to dispose of. This is the minutes for our January 24th, 2024 meeting, and I have reviewed them, and they look good to me. If there are any questions, if not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Chairman, Mr. Skidmore and Ms. Dixon, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the January 24th, 2024 meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that's approved unanimously. Next, we have citizen comments. Mr. Eckenroth, anyone signed in for today? Okay, no citizen comments. We do have Alderman Bob Garza in the audience with us tonight. Good to have you, Alderman Garza. Thank you for being here. Next are action items. And before we begin, I'd like to make just a brief comment. As you know, the citizens of our city voted 64% to approve the half a penny sales tax. The proceeds of that sales tax, which is estimated to be around $8.2 million a year, has to be appropriated to four unique departments or programs for the city. And those are public safety, which is police and fire. And the next one is paving. The next one is infrastructure, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And the fourth one is parks. So in thinking of our commitment to spend so much money for infrastructure, staff has been working hard on preparing a plan for us to consider. The plan tonight will be in two parts. One is an infrastructure resiliency plan, and that was prepared, I think, by Director Locke and her staff. And then the transportation plan, I think that was prepared by Keith Free, our planning director. And then we have other items below that, but this is our first opportunity at strategic planning for infrastructure. And you know, the old saying is that if you don't plan, if you don't plan, you'll plan. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So thank you. Easy for you to say. But anyway, so we're in the middle tonight of planning, and so I want to thank the staff for their hard work. They have spent many hours on this, and thanks to Jesse for his leadership on this. So we're going to jump right into the infrastructure resiliency plan, and Ms. Locke, if you would go into a good definition so we can understand, and then take us through the highlights of our infrastructure resiliency plan. Ms. Locke, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So it's the slides that are contained within this deck from our agenda. So we're starting with our infrastructure resiliency plan. Read a quick definition that I found to be very insightful. Infrastructure resilience is the ability to reduce the magnitude and/or duration of disruptive events. The effectiveness of resilient infrastructure or enterprise depends upon its ability to anticipate, absorb, adapt to, and/or rapidly recover from a potentially disruptive event. So, why do we need this plan?
And we've had a few of those lately, haven't we?
Yes, sir, just a few. So we've had multiple unplanned disasters and events, which have resulted in service disruptions. And so what will this plan provide? So this should provide us a plan for maintenance to make sure that we are keeping up with our infrastructure the best that we're able. Redundancy, which is ensuring that we have backup stock of critical components, things like that, so that we can very quickly make replacements and move forward. And preparation, of course. And then what will this do for our city? Hopefully this would reduce the impact of these disruptive events and help us to recover even faster. And I think that we've learned lessons along the way over the past several years, and I think there are quite a few things that we can continue to do that you'll see in this plan to help us improve even more. So the main points that this plan covers are traffic control and signals, roadway network, stormwater, and our facilities. You have a draft before you. I did not intend to go into great detail today, but I'm prepared to answer any questions that you may have as we move forward to finalizing the plan.
Why don't you just go over one, maybe the generator backup connections, cabinets, because this
Sure.
has to do with red lights when they go out,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
give us a
Yes.
flavor of that.
So as we saw after the most recent tornado event, we had multiple traffic signalized intersections that were out, completely dark. There was no power, of course, throughout most of the city. And so our police officers were out there expending resources, directing traffic, trying to ensure our motoring public was safe. And we had to put extra lights out, all of these things. So we have we have identified this as a benefit toward redundancy and being more resilient. This provides plugs within our traffic signal cabinets to be able to hook up a generator to run our traffic signals in the event of a power loss. So as long as all of the traffic signal equipment that is in place is operating and or we have backup equipment, we would be able to operate our traffic signals in the event of a widespread power loss, which would be excellent.
Okay. Any questions regarding the resiliency plan? And we had some complaints during the snow that it took a long time for us to get the snow off of the roads. Is this included in this plan?
Yes.
Under what area?
Yes, that would be under the road network. And the very first item under there is winter weather response. And so part of that would be continuing to train our staff. A part of that would be continuing to expand our equipment and our attachments for the plows and the salt boxes, making sure we're purchasing adequate salt. There are some years we don't use hardly any, but there are years like this where we need quite a bit at one time. So it's just being prepared.
And I think in the mayor's proposed budget, several of these items are being financed, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
The
Any
plan currently considers a 5-year implementation timeline. As you'll see there are a lot of things in there that carry significant cost with them, like radar detection for our intersections, for example. It's $60,000 approximately for an intersection. So in order to implement that throughout the city, we would have to spread that out over a timeline. So 5 years is the assumed implementation timeline for the plan.
So this may be a budget question for Jesse. So when these items are in the budget, should they be in the PIP account under infrastructure? Just so the citizens can see, what we're spending and the money they authorized us to spend?
I think in certain instances, yes. Maybe not all of it, but in certain instances, absolutely. And I can mention to the mayor that we can be sensitive to that and highlight those in the PIP.
Okay, good. Any questions on the resiliency plan?
I have a question, and I think some of this plan overlaps some of the other items that we already have budgeted. So do we have a price tag, Sarah, for this plan? Or is this just still in the works?
It's still in the works, but currently what's shown, the annual cost to implement what's estimated in here currently would be 1.2 million.
Okay.
In order for a 5-year implementation.
That's right, yes.
So this is basically just the roadmap of a strategic plan, like we did the master plan for the parks.
Yes.
This is something to encompass the entire city if well, there's another weather-related incident or something like that.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Looks good so far. I'm anxious to dive deeper into this.
Yes, Alderman Dixon.
Have we done any studies on the weather patterns? It seems like the jet stream is dipping lower into Tennessee with the tornadoes and our snowstorms. Have we? Because I've been here 12 years. The first 3-4 years, nothing, and ever since then, it's like we're at a peak now. So,
I'm not aware of any studies. I can say I've observed patterns. Obviously, we're seeing tornadoes around the first, second week of December.
yeah.
We've had wind storms and tornadoes in March. And then, of course, the winter events that we've seen in January usually. I've noticed patterns, but I'm not aware of a study.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As they say, the weather changes, doesn't it? Yeah.
It sure does.
It's gonna.
We have,
Time keeps marching on.
yeah, we have two aldermen, Alderman Garza and Alderman Sassy. Do y'all have any questions on the resiliency plan? Okay, very good. All right, well, thank you, Sarah. We'll be interested, and I guess on a going forward basis, this will be monitored by, I guess, Public Works Committee as we move forward as well, so.
Okay.
great. Okay. All right, next is the transportation plan presentation, and Mr. Eckenroth.
Thank you. I will note that too, that 1.2 million price tag for the infrastructure resiliency plan, we will have opportunities for grants. So having the plan allows us to be grant ready when those opportunities comes up. So it will help on that front as well. It's a lot of work on Sarah to put that together, so thank you, Sarah, for doing that. This presentation, although I'm going to start off, this is really the work of Keith and JP to put all the maps together. So thank you, Keith, for doing the work to put this together in draft format. We really wanted to get some type of strategic plan in front of BOMA. We've received some feedback from Alderman Robertson on the draft, so we just wanted to make sure we shared this with you and kind of give you a high-level view of what's going on. So if you go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is kind of the million-dollar question, right? Why would we create a long-range transportation plan? And if I was to ask everyone which city project is the highest priority, I would probably get different answers from most people. And so this allows us to put projects in a strategic list, so we can just kind of march down the list, and it makes it more efficient for the city and for staff to prioritize needs if we're all on the same page for which projects are going to be implemented. It makes us look in a citywide perspective. It's more of a comprehensive view because we have competing priorities and competing interests at the city. So it's very difficult when you hear of all these needs that the city has and they're all competing, well, which one is the highest? And if we don't bring the needs for infrastructure before you and you're not aware of those needs, then, you know, the need of the day can outweigh maybe a longer term infrastructure need. So by looking, you know, kind of a wide angle view, this gives us a really comprehensive view of what the city needs into the future. And I think it allows BOMA and city staff to make better decisions. and beyond what we do here, it'll set the foundation for the folks who come behind us too when we're gone. Strategic priorities, like I said, we don't really want to get distracted with the flavor of the day, but we want to have a strategy that we work down. We don't want to continually be in a catch-up phase where we say, oh, you know what, traffic is really bad in this area. We wish we would have thought about this 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but if we can get to a point where we're not catching up on our infrastructure and we can stay ahead of it, that would be extremely helpful. Just like, your home budget, you need to set money aside to repair your roof and your air conditioning system, and although they might not be as I guess, as attractive as a new countertop or new flooring. Those are the things that we have to be disciplined to put on our priorities and to save for those types of things. So that's really the goal of the plan, to help us make better decisions and to put a list of projects together that we can strategically implement. Go to the next slide, please. You know what? I got the clicker's working up here. I'll just use it up here. Kind of how we got here tonight. Unlike maybe apartment complexes, transportation improvements aren't quite as contentious. It's pretty easy to identify when there's a traffic problem. So we've gotten feedback from BOMA. We've gotten feedback from residents, from city staff, just in casual conversations. We haven't gone out and done anything official, except for city staff, we've sat down and got some input from staff. But we hear some of the same concerns over and over, so that's what's reflected, at least in our draft plan. And then we've taken the time to place traffic improvements into specific categories. So Keith will go over that. So they're kind of just chunked up, so it's more manageable. We don't just have a really long list of projects, but they're chunked into categories, so we can be specific with the implementation. So Keith is going to come up. We're going to kind of hop around between staff to do the presentation.
Yeah, as Jesse said, we're placing some of these items in specific categories so that we're grouping them along with the different areas that they're addressing. The 3 items that you can see on the screen are the specific categories. The first one is decrease congestion, and then improve safety would be the next one, and then improve circulation. Those are 3 distinct things, and as we unveil and kind of build what we're talking about doing in the plan and how it's going to look and function, these are important categories to start with. And pictorially, all those images, they'll follow through in our plan as well. Try to get that. And then one of the things that we did in each one of these 3 categories is identify major improvements within those, and we kind of look at that as a tool bag of improvements. I think it keeps going out. There we go. And that first one on decreased congestion, you can see that same image that we saw before with kind of the cars on decreased congestion. Those major improvements that would be associated with that would be synchronized lights, widen roads, add traffic lanes, new road connections, and you'll see right there where it says mitigate future development. You'll see that on pretty much all of the categories, because all of the categories are affected by development. And then improve safety. These are the major improvement areas: adding traffic signals, analyzing traffic data on crash data. Introducing new lighting or better lighting, widening roads, continue to mitigate future development, new road construction, improved signage, and then also looking at line of sight where we don't have things blocking at specific points in the road that are impeding the visual ability to see things. And then the third, final category of improved circulation includes items such as adding turn lanes and channelizing traffic, adding raised center medians, also includes roundabout, widening roads, and new road construction. And these 3 areas, on any given project, there may be overlap. So you may have it just wouldn't be improved circulation, but you'll have one of those other 2 that might be involved in it as well. And then in looking at how we evaluate and rank the projects, I'll let Sarah kind of go over what that is, and so we can continue with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. So the main categories we would look at for criteria to rank projects would be our estimated city cost. So we would be considering associated funding as part of that weighted category. Safety issues and concerns, which would also be based on collision data and other traffic data. Traffic flow through the area. Average traffic counts, which will help us to classify the area, the roadways, identify how many vehicles are kind of moving through the area, and also how many users that would benefit. And then the proximity to critical facilities, such as hospitals, schools, fire stations, things of that nature. We would anticipate these being weighted, not equally. Kind of some numbers we're throwing around, maybe 25% city cost, 35% safety, 15% traffic flow, 15% ADT, and 10% proximity to critical facilities. But that's not been finalized, but they would be weighted based on, the level of importance of those criteria. And then as we move through the plan, we would look at placing these projects into fiscally constrained plans for different timelines. So whether it be 5, 10, 15, 30 years, just whatever that timeline is, we would look at a fiscally constrained plan for implementation. And are we back? Okay, thank you. So we have cost estimates, very high level. These are not detailed estimates. And as I think we've discussed before on some of the other projects, estimates will, of course, mature and become more refined as we go through design for specific projects. But these are very high level. We try to make it easy. So the single dollar symbol would be any project that's less than $1 million. $2 symbols, projects between $1 million and $5 million. 3 would be between $5 million and $10 million, and then of course the $4 symbol would be more than $10 million. And that's just a pretty simplistic way to help identify the cost brackets for these.
And this is city cost, correct?
This
Would be city cost or the total cost project, like?
This would be the total cost of the project, yes. Yeah. All right, and then next we'll be looking at the examples of the project storyboard concept that Keith and JP have been working on. So I'll let Keith come.
So I have a question, Sarah.
Sure.
Go back to the previous slide. On a lot of projects, we get help from the state, from GNRC.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not considering the assistance. We're just considering what the total cost would be, or no, we're looking at only city cost?
In the ranking criteria, we're looking at the city cost because some of the projects, for example, Walton Ferry Old Chapel,
Right.
We already have funding associated with that project. So the overall total project cost is very high, but the city cost is much lower, but there's funding already associated with that. Whereas, let's say improvements to Sanders Ferry, there's no funding associated with that now. The overall project cost might be comparable, but there's no funding associated with it. So just looking at those two side by side, we would rank Walton Ferry higher than we would Sanders Ferry because we already have funding. We're closer to being in a position to complete the project. So it's just a way to rank them.
Yeah. Have we applied to the GNRC for any new projects the last couple of years?
We have not. The only project that we have submitted that's new in the last few years would be the Exit 8 project, because that's not currently in the TIP or the Regional Transportation Plan, the RTP. And so we have submitted a request to add that. But we wouldn't necessarily, so the RTP, they'll be calling for new projects, I believe, this coming year. They do that on, I think, a 4-year cycle. So they'll be calling for new projects. So that would be the opportunity to get new projects added into that plan, but having funding associated with those projects would also be an important component to be competitive, to be added to the RTP.
So will this strategic plan be able to help us with the GNRC applications
I believe it will,
moving
yes.
forward? Okay.
Yes,
All right, thank you.
yeah. All right. Keith will come up and talk to us about the storyboard. If we can get there. Oh.
Yeah, and what this is, and JP had put this together, we're going to have a hard plan that you can hold in your hand, and we're going to go over conceptually what that's going to look like. But in addition to that, we're going to have a fly-through storyboard that we'll be able to use as well. And JP will kind of fly through a couple of these. That project that you just saw was the Walton Ferry project. There we go. And then all of this is going to be all connected where you can zoom in and out and you can see all the different projects. So I think this will be very helpful for the citizens. That was Wessington. This is Sanders Ferry, I believe. Is that right? Yeah. Sanders Ferry is over on the right. And that's the intersection of Imperial and Sanders Ferry. That's that bridge that needs to be widened on Sanders Ferry. And that's up by Main Street. All of that is looking at one project for Sanders Ferry, probably broken into 3 different phases. And then this is the Stop 30 Road and Drakes Creek Road. We got 3 things going on there. The yellow area is the Stop 30 improvement, and then the continuation of the yellow area right there at that intersection, that's the Stop 30 Drakes Creek intersection improvement. And then that orange area is the rest of Drakes Creek all the way up until you get to, it doesn't include the roundabout in front of Durham Farms, but it's everything up to that. And as you can see, this fly-through is a very nice, it's good. It's going to be good to have a hard document that we have the plan on, but we're going to have the ability and the technology to have this information as well. And I think this will be helpful in the coming years as well.
And I guess the reason for the Drakes Creek widening or is to accommodate, well, we've got a lot of parkland for future parks, but also the schools, the schools that are there. So, yeah.
And we have that, and as Sarah was speaking to earlier,
Fire station.
Yeah, as we're looking at ranking, you know, where are the road improvements near in proximity to critical facilities such as hospitals, or out in this area, critical facilities would be the schools and would also be our fire station that's out there as well. So those things would be taken into account. But we just kind of wanted to show you the storyboard and kind of visually what that looks like, and we think that's going to be very helpful as we in the coming years as we look at our plan and are looking to implement, being able to draw back on that. Let me get back up here to where we are. Just a second. Oh, let me go back. Let it catch up with itself. Here we go. This is an example, as you can see on your screen. This is an example of the plan concept, of the way it's laid out. It's very visual. You can see several different elements. This, on the left-hand side, is the Walton Ferry intersection. And then on the right-hand side is a Wessington Old Shackle Road intersection. You can see there's a lot of information on there. Let me zoom in just a little bit so you can see a little bit better. So the top of that one for the Walton Ferry, you can see we have a map, and it's got a little map that shows where it is in the city. And then also you can see it's identified as yellow, so that fits it into decreasing congestion. And then on the right side, you can see the secondary categories are improved safety and improved circulation, and improved safety has an orange color associated with it. Improving circulation has a blue, so we have colors that kind of go through all of this. And then the major improvements that we had talked about earlier that go with each category, these are some of the specific things that are impacted through this particular project. And then down there on the bottom left, where Sarah was talking about the ranking, and we haven't ranked anything yet, and that's just conceptual. But we're going to be looking at some of these different things like the total city cost, the safety, the traffic flow. You know, what level of service does an intersection have, average daily traffic count, and the proximity of critical facilities. So all those will create a score that will assist us in determining what the rank. You can see this one, we just listed as 0, 0, but it would have whatever the rank would have. And then where Sarah was talking about the dollar signs, then we would have the dollar signs that would represent, you know, the amount of the project at that high level kind of estimation. And then this is just a couple of other projects. I believe that project on the left is the Drakes Creek Stop 30 Road, and then the one on the right are the Sanders Ferry improvements.
Is the Sanders Ferry, okay, more than 10 million?
Yeah.
And Stop 30, you think is more than 10 million as well?
Yes.
Or the high level
when
right
you put
now?
all those together, some of them individually would be maybe less, but when you put all three phases together, they would be that. And we may, when we actually create the plan, we may call out those phases and do individual pages and like this for each phase as well. So we may do that as well. The clarification.
And in Sanders Ferry, is the third phase the most expensive? Or I guess phase one would be, that's the
It might.
helping the flow off of Main Street onto Sanders Ferry Road, right?
That probably would be, then maybe the bridge,
And-
then the intersection.
And I know it's very early, but that would be hopefully our state would help us with that, since that's a state road, hopefully.
Yeah, we would definitely be seeking any assistance that we could from that. And so this kind of gives you kind of a taste of the plan. The plan will also include the list of all the projects in a spreadsheet and have all the information, and it'll include also what all these images and everything mean, so that anybody from the public or anybody could look at the plan and understand exactly what's going on. This is just a highly visual plan, so there won't be a ton of just of writing going on. You know, it isn't going to be, all the pages are going to have something going on with them. It isn't just going to be a page after page of a bunch of writing on it. And because that's one of the things that we're looking at, is we wanted to create something that was specifically for us, for the city of Hendersonville, that would be a document, you know, that would keep interest, not just when it got approved, but after it got approved as well, and kind of had a little bit of life to it. One of the things that we're going to do is very important too, is engaging the community, and I'm going to let Jason cover what those items are.
Keith, I've got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
It's very impressive. Now, are you ranking every project in the city, or just the future projects? Because I know some are already funded.
Yeah.
And I know Saunders Ferry Road is not at this point, or the bridge, and because the entire road needs to be widened and improved. But I didn't know if what's ranked and what's not.
Yeah, we're going to include everything. So anything that isn't already being built is going to be on there. So those projects that you're probably going to discuss a little bit later tonight on where they're at, all those, if they haven't really started the construction, then we're going to have those on there. And some of those, of course, will rank right at the very top, but we're already funding, and we're committed to those. So, you know, it very well may be, we don't know, we haven't ranked them yet, but when that happens, we may find that, you know, the top 3 or 4 are ones that we're already doing. Or we may find one of those is number 7, but we're already, you know, and we're already committed to doing that. So we'll see what we find out about that. And then what our intention is as staff is to come up with a recommendation of ranking based on these criteria. So it isn't going to be, as you can see, the criteria and the weighted factors we're going to use. Everybody's going to be able to see what those are. And we're trying to do it in a manner that's not just, we feel like this needs to be done, or this might be a good idea. It's going to be backed by information that you could justify why this was ranked, this way or that way.
So Keith, how many projects have you looked at?
We've looked at
Identified, how many have you identified?
34.
34.
I think maybe, yeah, so 34 so far is what and those are just, they range from very large projects, as some of the ones you saw there, to small ones that, some of the smaller ones would be like a Wessington Old Shackle intersection. So that's about the smallest. So we're not going down, we're going down to probably, small projects to large projects. But we came up with about 34. There may be a couple of more by the time we get through with it.
And I don't know all the projects, of course, but one of the ones I hope that you have included, if not, I would like for you to look at it, and maybe other board members would have a suggestion, is New Shackle Island Road.
Yes.
Especially from the bypass to stop 30, especially right in that seems to just be a horrible congested period. So I don't know if you've already considered that, or put that in your toolbox too.
I think we have that in there, and then we also have the segment of the middle of the bridge over 386 to Glenbrook, and then the middle of the bridge south on the to the off ramp where that backs up. So I think we've got all three of those that are in there. So, okay.
Any other discussion for Keith at this time?
Yeah.
Okay. And who was it put all this together? Or the storyboard and all?
The storyboard, JP put that together, and then the rest of the stuff that we're working on, we're doing it in planning, and Sloan in our office, she's putting it together. She's going to.
Thank you.
She's doing a good job.
Politicians like pictures.
Yeah.
We like a lot of pictures. So thank you for it. It's really, really good presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so the next part that we're talking about is engaging the community. I think one of the things that we learned just with trash is the community wanted to have a voice. And this is no different. The roads that they travel every day, they want to be able to have a say in that. So there's a few different ways that we're looking at that. The first are BOMA workshops, more of a town hall style, where the public can come, they can give their input on the different projects, and maybe even how they're ranked if that's available at that time. Another is the Capital Projects Committee, and that's obviously where you're diving in deeper on the details. All the public is welcome to attend to that, but sometimes people want to just look at the high-level side. So the workshops is one. Surveys are also another. Getting into topical surveys. What can we do? On the last survey we did, we had over 2,000 people, or close to that, respond. That's a lot of people to respond back when the city hadn't done that before. So we felt like that was a great response. This would be another time where people want to give their input or give ideas. Maybe they have ideas that we haven't looked at, and we're open to those, and we want to hear from them and hear what their needs are. And so it's engaging them, it's going through the ideas with open-ended questions. What are the things that we want to hear back? Going through that data once we get it all, and then sharing that back to the team who's developing this plan. So we'll use social media, we'll use news outlets and things that we've done before. But the idea is to really engage the community in a number of different ways so that we can solicit feedback on this, because all these changes will directly impact what they drive on a daily basis. So it's pretty much a high level of what we're looking at from the communication plan. Anything I can answer?
Well, we'll talk to Casey about this,
Yeah.
but we had some complaints from citizens that they're not online.
Okay.
So hopefully the staff can think of some strategies to allow citizens that don't have internet access to participate.
Absolutely. I know one of the things that we had looked at and we had talked about was how print is very cost prohibitive, and the mailers that we're doing can add up quite a bit. So, but if we have options where they can come into City Hall here, fill out the forms, or if they contact our office and we can mail it to them in some way. But I know the recent mailers that we're doing were several $1,000s. and that was just on the trash notification. That's one. The more we do it, the more that costs. So we want to do it the most cost-efficient way possible, but I absolutely hear you in having alternatives.
Good, thank you.
Yep. Jesse, I think it's
Thank
to
you,
you.
Jason.
All right, so Keith and Jason have already touched on this a little bit. Next steps is we're getting input. Staff's going to continue to develop this plan. As you saw, we have a concept. We have a toolkit that says, hey, in certain instances, look at a roundabout, look at road widening. But we are going to kick this to a peer review, so to a firm who just does engineering work, because we want to get their input on it as well. As Jason mentioned, we'll follow up with some community surveys and get citizen input. We're going to have BOMA workshops, and we will probably end up adopting that infrastructure resiliency plan that Sarah shared earlier as part of this plan as well. And then as far as the processes go, this is what we're doing tonight with the capital projects meeting. As Jason mentioned, we'll do a kind of a town hall style BOMA workshop as we get more refined with this process, one where we can get citizen input on the plan. We will come back to BOMA with the capital projects before BOMA to get more of a final plan put together, and then we'll wrap it up with a resolution that probably goes to BOMA with a public hearing. So there will be ample opportunity for BOMA, for this committee, and for the citizens to engage and participate in the plan. So I think that wraps up kind of what we have on this. If there's any questions for any of us, we'd be happy to take those questions now.
Questions?
I always have questions. Jesse, thank you and your staff for putting all this together. Being proactive with transportation, it seems to be the number one complaint I get, that and trash when it's missed. But y'all have really worked hard on this, and also asking for the public's input and their involvement throughout this process. I just want to thank y'all for doing this for the city. And I can't imagine anybody would complain about us trying to fix traffic, other than that they wanted us to do it 20 years ago. But still, thank you all for all your effort and hard work putting these plans together.
Yeah, no problem. The easy part is putting the plan together. The difficult part is going to be disciplined enough to put money aside and to strategically work through accomplishing these plans. Alderman Robertson asked Keith, how many projects do we have?
Well, and I think Sarah's addressing that by ranking these projects and making them a priority and putting them together, especially when we've got 34 projects citywide. And I know some are already funded, but personally, I think Saunders Ferry Road will be number one.
Yeah, and some of those rankings will change too, because as we apply for grants and we have a long-range transportation plan to use to apply for grants, or if a development is happening in an area and we can piggyback on that project, the rankings are going to be a bit fluid, because we might get grants for a project that was ranked number 9 or number 10. Well, it's going to jump to the top because we have funding to do it. And if a developer comes into a middle of an area where we had planned to do a road widening, well, guess what? That's going to jump to the top too, because we're going to go ahead and piggyback on that project and do a more comprehensive plan. But absolutely, having the plan will guide us. It will just be a long journey to get through 30, 40 projects.
Doing your homework now, I think GNRC will appreciate that, TDOT, all the other state agencies and funding sources going forward when we do apply for grants. Y'all have already done the heavy lifting.
Yeah, sure. And the work that Keith, JP, and Sarah and the team have done is, by the time we get done with this, it'll be tens of thousands of dollars that we've saved in consultant work by just doing it in-house too. So kudos to them. They've done a really good job on it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was going to mention. If we'd had a consultant do this, it would have been astronomical, and they'd still be working on it, So thanks to the staff. I do have a question. Go back one slide if you can, JP. you don't put a timeline on anything, and I like timelines, because if you don't have a timeline, sometimes it just kind of morphs, into inaction. So, does staff have some timelines? I mean, this year, and I support it fully, the mayor in the PIP budget, if my calculations are right, 81% of the PIP budget this year are for two categories: public safety, police and fire, and paving. And I support it 100% because I think that's where the need is. We're almost spending nothing on infrastructure. So hopefully we can put this plan in action, so next year, we'll be able to start allocating some money toward improving traffic flow. And because that's the number one complaint I hear. Why don't y'all do something? And why does it take so long to do it? Those are the two complaints I hear all the time. So, do you have a timeline? I mean, of when you would like to see this approved by BOMA, the last step?
I don't have a date, but I know the half-cent sales tax has put a sense of urgency on this, so it's urgent for us. We have to get it done before the next budget process, far in front of the next budget process. So when we're talking about allocating money, and that's really what this plan comes down to, where we allocate our dollars, we're going to have it wrapped up. So we're making it a very high priority. We can get a more definite timeline to you. We don't have a date on it, but we'll want to have it done well in advance of the next time we're talking about budget dollars.
Good. Thank you. Any questions regarding the strategic plan? Excellent. Okay. Moving right along on the next action item, I've asked the staff for updates on these projects. And one of the things I've asked the staff, several of these projects are in what we refer to as the right-of-way acquisition phase, which it is kind of hard to put my understanding on the steps involved. So I've asked the staff in discussing these projects to do two things. One is to identify how many parcels of property do we have to purchase for each of these projects. And number two, how many have we purchased, or how many have been closed? So that will give us kind of an objective understanding of, instead of just we're in the land acquisition for right-of-ways, we'll be able to understand in that where are we as far as, because it's all about purchasing land before we can, go to bid, correct, Sarah?
That's right, yes.
Okay, so take us through the list, please, and
Sure.
if you would.
So our last action item is Walton Ferry Old Shackle realignment. This project, I've changed the status to construction. This project has been submitted for letting, and at the end of the presentation, I do have the information you've asked for as far as how many parcels and how many are completed and this current status. For this project, the reason why we are looking at this as an action item, if you see at the bottom, we need additional funding for this project to go forward to construction. Last week, I received an email from TDOT that the construction estimate had been updated again, and it had increased significantly. Thankfully, the GNRC, the last time that we asked for additional funding for this project, they put additional funding in a reserve. So for that 80%, they had an additional $3 million that they had put into reserve that has to go through an amendment process to put it into active construction phase, but the money's there. So where we sit currently, this project requires an additional roughly $2 million to be able to move forward, and that's the city's portion. That's the 20% to move through construction. So I have some data here on how much we've already paid TDOT for the 20% and how much we have outstanding, and I'm prepared to answer any questions you might have about that. To date, we have paid TDOT $3,271,794. And then the total 20% required is $5.12 million. With this increase, it is not funded completely at 80/20. There's $87,000 that the city would be responsible for 100%. We request additional funding through the GNRC and through TDOT because they have CMAQ and some discretionary funds as well. And because of the overruns that they're seeing on all of the projects, it's very widespread, there's no additional funding available. So when they let this project, we do need to understand as well, once it is bid, if those bids come in even higher than the updated estimate, then we would be 100% responsible for that additional cost as well.
So again, I'm not good with numbers. So again, what additional funds based upon the last TDOT estimates are we short?
Roughly $2 million.
$2 million. We got to come up with $2 million.
Yes, sir.
We have a capital projects reserve. Is that correct? How much money is in that reserve?
Roughly 500,000,
Oh.
is that right? No, okay. I'm gonna let Jesse come answer that question.
Oh, that wasn't what I was hoping to hear.
So we have a contingency
Yeah.
fund that has, I think, around $500,000, and that's for when projects go over. But we do have a reserve, so we have an infrastructure reserve, because remember, you guys voted for the 3 reserves, so infrastructure, the rainy day, and then the public safety reserve. I think we have a couple million in the infrastructure. I can't recall off the top of my head exactly what that is, but workshop number 2 is coming up, and we are going to go over what our reserves are, and we're going to go over the non-operating budget, and this will be included in next year's non-operating budget under capital projects, and we'll be talking about the availability of that infrastructure reserve
So
at our May 2nd meeting.
So we've got 500 now, correct?
That's what we've been rolling into the budget every year for when a project, like we're building the fire hall and, some unanticipated work comes up, that's 50,000. Instead of coming back to do an amendment through the board, we grab it from that amount we've already appropriated. That's in every year's budget. On top of that, we've set money aside in our financials to say we have, $2 million in reserve for infrastructure projects. That's in addition to that 500,000 that we have in our budget every year.
So do you think there'll be sufficient money in the reserves to cover this shortfall of at least $2 million?
I think we're pretty close with what's in the infrastructure reserve itself. Now, we have 3 reserves, so if we move some of that money around to put all the money in the reserves, I absolutely know we'd have enough to cover that shortfall.
Yeah, because the public safety reserve was for equipment, and now we're purchasing equipment with the PIP, correct? So there may not be as much need for a public safety reserve?
We are purchasing the equipment
Right.
with the PIP. You are
Right.
correct.
Okay.
But this is just one project of many.
I know it.
Did
I
you
know it.
say GNRC stepped up and added additional funds to this?
They did. The last time we saw a very significant increase in this project, they added additional funds, and then they anticipated the need for additional construction funds. Since we were close to construction, they put an additional $3 million in reserve.
Will they put another 2 million in?
Well, so the majority of that $2 million is our 20% share.
Okay.
So most of it's funded.
This project's, I'm not saying dragging on, but it's been dragging on for 20 years. And why would TDOT make us pay for a project that hasn't even started construction?
They are requiring a commitment of funding before the project can go to bid, based on the current estimate. So the GNRC has to go through the amendment process to transfer those funds to the active construction phase, and we just have to be able to give a verbal confirmation that that we are in agreement to fund the additional 20%, and then there's, like I said, I think it's roughly 87,000. That would be 100% the city, where it's almost completely funded at that 80-20, as it is right now.
I'm confused. So 2 million is the new portion of the city cost for that TDOT estimates the bid may be.
That's right.
2 million. And the 2 million is covered by GNRC?
The actual increase was much greater than that. It was like $9 million increase in the estimate. So GNRC is funding almost all of that 80%. And then we are responsible for 20% plus that 87,000.
Which is 2 million,
It's roughly 2 million.
which probably will be higher at the bid.
It's possible, yes.
Yeah. So we'll have to take that into account at the budget, for the budget, correct? So,
Yeah.
Chairman Dixon?
But
Okay.
we hope that there's groundbreaking this fall.
It's possible.
And-
They're ready to let this project in August. They turned it in for letting, which means they're ready. They've released it to be bid for construction.
Okay, I know everyone has been anticipating this for
20
a
years.
lifetime.
Yes.
Chairman, you said government moves slow. Is it this slow? I know, I digress. It's just one project. but-
Think so.
Well, we are hoping that other projects move somewhat quicker.
I agree.
Yeah, okay, well, okay, it is moving, but we're gonna have to find more money
Yes.
for that, so, okay.
Yeah.
Tighten our belts even more, I guess. Okay, any other questions for this? Alderman Skidmore, you've talked out about this project over the decades, haven't you?
Yes. Yes, I have. That's why I'm kind of being quiet tonight. I'm just listening and observing. And I'm sure that I'll have some comments later on down the line, but I want to see the way the process that you all have suggested. But we got to remember, this is just one project out of how many projects did you say? 30-something?
34.
34 projects, and
Yeah.
this is one of the oldest ones, and I do have a couple of questions, but I'm going to reserve them, because I don't want to speak out of turn, nor do I want to open a can of worms on this. So that's why I'm keeping my mouth shut for once, I guess, and seeing, what all has transpired. But this is, when I look at this one, especially Old Shackle and Walton Ferry, this is nothing new to me. When I look at this, the only thing that I see that is new is the cost has gone a lot more than what we originally had back in the day, back in the early 2000s. And, we'll just see where it finally takes us, because I believe once it starts again, it's going to be higher than what it is now. I do believe that. I don't know of any projects that we've had dealing with TDOT or just with the state of Tennessee that has been either the same or lower. It always goes higher, because that's just the way it works. I mean, unfortunately, the way it works with inflation and those kind of things do with projects. But thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, next.
All right, next, our Drakes Creek Roundabout. We are still in the right-of-way phase on this project. As I've said, I've got a table at the end that clearly shows all the tracks, but I'll say there 5 different property owners that we're working to acquire property on. We have 2 that have signed and agreed. We have a third that is reviewing now and has verbally stated agreement, but they have not signed yet. And then there are 2 property owners that we believe it's very possible may end up may end up moving through that process toward condemnation if we can't come to an agreement before that time, which I'm hopeful we will, but we'll see how we move through the process. They've been resistant thus far, but this project, if we obtain the right-of-way, we would still hope to be able to let the project later this year. Of course, this is grant funded through the TDEC ARPA funds from COVID money. So there is a completion date on this. There's a deadline. We have to have this project fully constructed by September of 2026 for utilizing those funds. So that is something to keep in mind as we move through this.
How much of this project was covered by those federal funds?
All the construction phase. So this project is estimated at 3.2 million was the last estimate. So it's they funded 65% of that.
Through the COVID money?
That's right.
65%?
Yes.
Do we have the rest of that money appropriated?
We do. We have it appropriated through the stormwater fund.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And also some of it is developer fees as well.
Yes.
Are any of those easements donated?
No, there was no one that had offered to donate. So
Is Durham having to give up some of their land for this right-of-way?
they, well, yes, they do have impacts. Sorry, I wasn't thinking of that when we talked about donated, but they do have impacts to both sides of those front parcels there. Most of it is kind of looks like a very shallow retention area along Avant Lane. We'll be using some of that to balance the project, if you will, because it's all in the floodplain. And so we'll be cutting material out of there to balance what we're putting in.
And did they donate that land?
They will be, yes.
Okay.
We're working through the agreement now.
Okay,
Yeah,
I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure of that.
yes.
Can we use their impact fees to pay for the right-of-ways?
Yes. Actually, that's the money that is appropriated already to purchase the right-of-way.
Okay.
All right, a budget question. Do we know how much money is in the Durham Farms impact
Fund.
fee? Okay, okay,
Yeah, we don't know offhand,
okay. Very good.
but we
Thank
can
you.
find out.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Drake's Creek Stop 30 intersection. We are in right-of-way on this project as well. We have completed appraisals and TDOT on almost all of the properties, and I'll detail that in a moment. TDOT has approved those. They have to review those. So we did get approval this week on the appraisals. So they'll begin making offers within the next 2 weeks, which is a great progress report on that. We are still hoping to let the project fourth quarter of this year. It's anticipated to be approximately a 2-year construction timeline. So there were, I'll just go to my table.
How many properties, do you recall, parcels that have to be purchased for this project?
I don't know why I didn't print that sheet. Oh, there it is. Okay. Let me look. For that project, we have 11,
11.
and we have 9 appraisals approved. So they'll be making offers on 9 of those.
Okay.
And they're working on finalizing the last 2 appraisals.
Okay.
Any other questions on this one? Okay. So then we have Exit 8. This project is in right-of-way. There are 11 tracks total for this that we need to acquire. They are currently starting appraisals on 5 of those tracks. The remainder of those are impacted in some way by the railroad, the tracks. And so we're still finalizing the coordination with CSX and STV, who represents CSX, to gain their concurrence on the current layout for the tracks, the runaround tracks and the bridge. Once we have their concurrence, then we'll be able to move forward with the remainder of those, so we're not doing it twice. This project, as we've discussed, was shown in the 10-year plan that TDOT put out to fund construction, which was excellent news. I do want to highlight that the plan does not fund right-of-way until 2027, and it does not fund construction until 2030. Now, I believe we discussed with the mayor last time that we met with TDOT, and we're working through every step that we can to try and move those timelines closer. So we have been in communications with the GNRC to add this project to the Regional Transportation Plan, the RTP. In doing so, that would help our rubric that TDOT is using to kind of prioritize their funding and their timelines. And I think the faster that we move through what we can for right-of-way, then that will also move the priority up for them as well. So, you have any questions on this project? No? Okay. Next, we have our signal synchronization phase 2. Might even be able to just drop phase 2 now that we're finished with the first one and call our signal synchronization. This project is currently in design. We submitted this to TDOT, the design, and they had some comments. We've addressed those, resubmitted just a week and a half ago. And so we haven't received a response back yet. I believe that we've addressed the comments satisfactorily. I'm hoping that we will then be able to move forward toward right-of-way, even though there's no right-of-way to acquire for this project. With local programs, you still have to go through every one of their phases. So we still need to gain notice to proceed to right-of-way, right-of-way certification, and then notice to proceed to construction. So still hopeful that we can move this project forward to construction this year, hopefully third quarter.
But you've got estimated completion first quarter 26. Is that right?
Yes. So when we're going through the process with TDOT, once we bid the project, we have to get their concurrence on it, and just all of that takes time. They have to review the bid documents, then they review the bids and the bid analysis to provide concurrence, and then going through the contracting.
So how long will this phase of construction take once the groundbreaking?
It's estimated to be a year.
A year.
It may be faster than that, but it's estimated at a year.
And I've been explaining to citizens when they ask me, this is putting the brains in the system. It's really kind of a variation of AI, isn't it? Where the lights will be able to talk to each other and
part
act.
of that was part of the first project. The fiber communications, that was part of the first project. The major benefit with this project, from my perspective, would be the detection. So this would provide aerial detection, if you will. So most of it's radar, which is extremely dependable. And it's all pole mounted, so it's not impacted by pavement condition. If you have rutting and shoving right now, it destroys loops. Whenever we mill and pave, it destroys loops, so you're paying to replace those constantly. So you'll have more consistency in detection, which is really important. And then also it would be the full implementation of new timing plans, whereas we're going through a process right now to provide new timing plans for the 3 main corridors, for the main segments of those. But because we don't have detection for all approaches, it won't be as efficient. Whereas when we have this new detection and it detects every approach to the intersection, it's able to be much more efficient and move traffic more efficiently through the city.
All right, let's push this all we can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree. All right. Looking at capital projects cost escalations, went through and just did quick calculation on the escalations that we've seen, and I've shared the time frame for that comparison. So for the Walton Ferry Old Chackle project from last year, when they updated the estimate to this year, which in all fairness did include CEI, which is the construction engineering inspection that's required for these major projects. That was part of this. But we saw a 56% increase in the project cost. For the Sanders Ferry Greenway, between 2021 and 2022, we saw a 51% increase in that project. The light synchronization phase 1, between 2019 and 2022, we saw a 93% increase in that project cost. And then I included paving and drainage because it's a pretty significant contract that we have. And of course, we saw a 35% increase between 2022 and 2023 on that contract.
So is this a good barometer of what these other capital projects, when they go to bid, that we can expect?
It could be. I think the market has slowed down a little bit when, but 2021 to 22 and 23 to 24, there was so much inflation through that time frame that these projects saw. I don't know that this can translate fully to these projects, but I believe it can be an indicator that we will see a significant increase once they go to bid.
Questions? Thank you.
All right, and then this is the table I said I would share with the clearly showing the tracks and those acquired. Walton Ferry Old Chackle, although it's no longer in right-of-way, wanted to share that we had 86 tracks total on this project. 84 have been completely acquired, and they have turned it into construction. Those 2 remaining are not holding up construction. They're just going through the final step of the process, but they're nearly complete.
Sarah, why has the Drakes Creek at Stop 30 taken so long? We haven't made any offers yet, correct? Why is that? That's been going on for years, hasn't it? So
It has taken longer than expected.
that's not a state delay issue.
Not completely. It's a process delay issue, I guess. So one of the first things we encountered was the Boone Holman, is that right? The Boone Holman Cemetery there? Is that what it's called? I believe it is. The Boone Cemetery. And we were having a difficult time establishing ownership. There's really no records establishing ownership for that. And when you're looking at the TDOT local programs process, if it were the city and we couldn't establish ownership and we've been maintaining it, we would just move forward, but that's not really the option. So we had to go through a historical review process to confirm that there was no owner and that the city was okay to proceed as long as we did not disturb anything, which this project stops right at the gate, pretty much. So it will not impact that cemetery. So that was one. Some of the other things that have come up through the appraisal process, there were a lot of questions and meetings and conversations about the highest and best use for the properties based on their current zoning and based on our land use and transportation plan, based on proposed land use and transportation. So there was some conflict that the appraiser needed to be very clear on what the highest and best use was to make sure we're following the Uniform Act, make sure we're making the best appraisal and providing the best offers that we could. So that did present a pretty significant delay. But we have 9 approved appraisals now, and they'll begin making offers on those 9. And then the 2 others will be following pretty soon.
These right-of-ways are eating our lunch.
Yeah.
Taking money away from the project. They do know they can donate these easements.
They do. They get a brochure that highlights that, but they're also informed that they're eligible for fair market value.
Is that all the presentation?
This last slide, I think Jesse'd like to highlight this.
Okay, good.
Right-of-way is a frustrating phase, to say the least. In the monthly BOMA report, we've been doing this kind of a donut wheel that's showing the progress on capital projects, and we've had 3 projects that have been reported: Saunders Ferry Greenway, Fire Station number 7, and the Signal Sink Phase 1. They're all 3 completed now. So we're going to replace that section, and we're going to show metrics on right-of-way completion. And so this just breaks out called 5 phases of right-of-way, and within each of those phases, there's multiple tasks that need to be completed. The first right-of-way phase is you got to determine where the property limits are at, who the owners are, if it's a permanent easement, if it's a temporary easement. Then you go into survey work. You have to order them. It has to be completed. Then you go into appraisals. You order them. They get completed. TDOT goes through an approval process of those appraisals. Then you go into offers, where you submit an offer, you negotiate an offer, they're accepted, and then again, TDOT has to approve those offers as well. And then finally, it gets recorded. So while we say right away and we lump it together as one item, when you break it up into the individual tasks, when we get these dollars that are attached to them, we have to go through all these processes to make sure we're eligible for those funds. So we will start to gauge the progress on these individual tasks and within these phases, and we'll put it in the BOMA report so you can see the progress that we're making. It basically looks like no progress has been made until we acquire a parcel, when we really could have gone through and completed 16 or 17 tasks before we finally acquire that property. So that will be included in your monthly BOMA report. I don't know if it will be completed by the time your next BOMA report rolls around, but you'll start to see these in your report on a monthly basis.
Jesse, while you're there, in trying to look forward, some time ago you prepared a document that I'd like to pass out. This is public safety equipment replacement cost by year, and this was as a result of the resolution we passed about 15 years for fire trucks and police cars, 100,000?
Yeah, 5 years,
100,000.
100,000.
So this will show you of the 8.2 million that staff has projected of what will come in, of what will be required for us to fulfill our obligation in the resolution. So this year it's $3.3 million, and next year it's $4.1 million. Is that, you have one in front of you? But
I don't, but I reviewed that
Yeah.
worksheet, and so what we did is we combined the PD lists and the fire lists, and Tamara put them together by year and what the purchase price would be during that year, so we would know every year. And that was the point of doing the replacement list, is so we knew what to budget for on an annual basis. So there are years where we will buy one fire engine. There's years where we won't. There's years where we'll buy a truck and an engine in the same year. So that's $3 million to buy a truck and an engine. So this just kind of highlights what that financial impact is by year.
Yeah, and I think this is important for us to understand how much money we're going to have for infrastructure. And with the cost of these projects going up, I mean, we're going to have to put on our real thinking hats to how to balance all the interest that we have, but for sure the public safety equipment needs that we have. Is that, okay, I just wanted to pass that out. Anything else, Mr. Eckenroth?
No, sir. Unless
Okay.
you have any questions.
We're under other business. Anybody have any other business they'd like to mention?
I have a topic to bring up.
Okay.
Don't shoot me, since we've all been talking about all this money, but I'd like to consider in the capital projects list the need for a new police station. So I would just like that to be considered and get people to start thinking about that.
Do we have a timeline on that?
No, but I mean, the facilities they need new facilities.
Yesterday. Yeah.
So, I mean, hate to bring it up when we've talked about all these expenses, but I think that's something that needs to be considered as a long-range.
I agree.
Do you think that the police and fire might be willing to delay 1 year the purchase of equipment so that we could address the building? You know, why don't we do this? Why don't we, because it wasn't, I didn't have it on the agenda, and that does, I think, deserve discussion. Why don't we put it on the next capital projects committee?
Yeah.
And I could try and get you some information
Okay.
ahead of time.
Okay, so we'll do that. Also, Sarah, for the next meeting that we have, I think we need to be prepared to discuss what new GNRC applications that we want to submit for, is it this summer or fall that they're going to be accepting them?
They said it would be about a year, which would line up with our I can't even think of the word, acceptance of the transportation plan. The long-range transportation plan that we're talking about right now, which would show us what our priorities are, the highest ranked projects, and I think that would help us identify which projects we would want to submit.
Okay, so either Jason or Mr. Eckenroth, when this is completed, I mean, I don't have the slide in front of me, but the next step is a public meeting, or a public,
Town hall meeting.
town hall meeting?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. So I guess at the next meeting, maybe we can discuss from those meetings and our decision of what GNRC applications, maybe you can make a recommendation to what the new application should be. I for
Okay.
sure want to get in line early on that process.
Yeah, so they open it up as like a call for projects, basically, for applications. So submitting before that time frame doesn't put us ahead of the line,
Okay.
but, yeah.
Okay, so those are two things on the next meeting. Any other things that you'd like to discuss? Capital projects?
Maybe we could get some cost estimates for that police station so we kind of know what we're facing. If, I don't want to get the cart before the horse, but, if we're going to bring it up, we might as well. I mean, I'm not saying hire architects, but if we can kind of get a ballpark of what the project is going to take.
Would this committee feel that, Alderman Skidmore?
No, go ahead and answer his, and then I'll ask Alderman Goodwin a question about that, about the police building.
So, all of us want to be out of debt of the city, not have any debt. But as we work toward almost being out of debt for the next couple of years, some of these projects, we cannot, in my judgment, absorb the financial hit to pay cash for these projects.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what a new police station would be. I would say, based on what the fire station was, it would be at least $10 million to $15 million, maybe more than that.
I would say 20.
Yeah, and based on these numbers,
I know that, don't quote me, but Brentwood just built one, and I want to say it was like 50 million, but they have stuff that we don't need,
Right.
Yeah.
I would like, in our discussion, to not only look at the building of a new station, but a complete refurbishment of the old, if that's possible. I mean, I haven't toured the building, so I don't know the condition it's in. Do you know when it was built? Mark, do you know when it was built?
Yes, I do, but it was in the 80s.
Oh, it was in the 80s.
I mean, yeah, it was in the lower, I mean, the higher 80s.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and, I will say this is kind of funny, to kind of make it a little more humorous. I don't even know, some of you guys were not even probably born then yet, but Bobby Frudenthal and myself, I have to kind of toot my horn. I usually don't do this, but I was capital projects chairman, believe it or not, when the police building was built. And we built it under budget, believe it or not. I was very proud of that fact. I still am very proud of that fact because that was back, when the real estate market fell so dramatically, not only in Tennessee and in Hendersonville, but the whole United States. And we were able to build, not only build that, and that facility was a really up to date at that time, but so I kind of chuckle now when I go in there and I look at it because I was going to tell Alderman Goodwin we really do need a new police station, and I was going to ask because I was thinking about, and Bobby, God rest his soul, I know he's in heaven looking down and he's probably chuckling now. The headaches that we had because it was a big step for the not only for the was for the whole board of mayor and aldermen at that time. It was a big step for the city of Hendersonville because it was one of the largest projects we had ever done for our city, believe it or not. And now look at it, but I was going to ask Alderwoman Goodwin, have you all looked at where the property that it might be considered or anything like that of that nature?
I've put some thought in it, and it's not definitely my area of expertise by any means, and we can discuss that in a meeting. I'd also like to find out my thoughts were, what that property is worth with the buildings, and
Right.
see how much of that would cover the cost towards,
Yeah. Well, in closing, and then I'll be quiet about it, but it's time. I mean, what are we, the 10th largest city in the state or close to it? And that building is 20-something years old, and you walk through it now, and everything is just too tiny, really, for our police officers. And so I hope there's something that can be looked at. I'm looking forward to that, and I know that everyone here agrees that we need a new police building. That police building that we got, we were just so lucky to get that property right there next to the retirement center. And there was a lot of issues that go into looking at a police building because there were a lot of people that were concerned about the lights, because they, as well as they have to, when they turn their cars on, they click those lights or the sound of their sirens. They go, and they didn't want to wake up the senior citizens at Park Place and close to it to the mail to the post office was there too. So, there's a lot that plays into that, as well as our chairman knows, to every single project that we have. How these little things like this, believe it or not, play a role into the development of these projects. So I'm glad you kind of raised that issue about the policeman, the police building on that, because it is needed. And thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Eckenrode.
We are working on a facilities assessment, not just for police, but for all facilities. We're really focusing on transportation first, but when we talk about competing priorities, competing interests, this is exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
We have them within every department. And if we don't put the data in front of you, again, it's harder to make an informed decision. So that's what we're trying to do. We have to focus on transportation first because we're doing it in-house. We're doing the facilities assessment in-house as well. So just to let you know, that will be forthcoming. We're going to finish this. We're already working on a facilities assessment, but it will be more than just police. It will be all the buildings.
Okay. Maybe we can look at that at the next meeting then.
And I had one other comment before you close about pickleball whenever you think it's appropriate.
Go ahead.
We had originally budgeted, I think, close to 600,000 for pickleball. We went out to bid. It was going to be over by the senior center. Bids came in really high, I believe over $1 million for the bids on the pickleball. So we have looked at relocating them over to Veterans Park and where the inline rinks have come down. So Andy's kind of mapped out an area that would work good over there. And we are looking at a cost of around $125,000 if we use the existing surface. Now, why we didn't consider that in the past so much is because we were going to use that as a field, as a grass field. Well, since then, we've lit additional fields, and we don't have the need like we did before we lit Memorial Field. We've lit the other side of Volunteer Park, so we've made a lot of improvements since that time. So just wanted to give you an update that is going to be in the budget, and it's about $125,000, but I think it gives us, is it 5 courts?
That's
5
great.
courts. It uses one of the rinks that are over there. We'll put a thin lift of asphalt on top. We're doing some of the plans in-house. So anyway, that's exciting news, and it's coming at a much reduced cost.
Good,
That's great.
Awesome.
It is good.
good news. That's good. Sarah, do you have anything else?
Yes, one last thing. You might see a new face sitting out here tonight. I'd like to highlight that we have hired a project manager.
Good.
And Todd Bond is our new project manager. He worked for the state of Washington previously, and so he has a lot of experience that he brings to this position, and I'm really happy to have him.
So we can expect things to move quicker, right? All right.
We will do our best.
All right. Well, welcome, Husky. Welcome to Tennessee. Okay, anything else from the staff? Anything, other business from the board members? If not, I'll entertain a motion to
I'll
adjourn.
make a motion.
Second.
Second, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned at